So what are some of the experiences that you found that like you weren't expecting to come up when you started your podcast? Good or bad, just experiences that you just would have never guessed.
Huh. Um, I'll talk about music. Like I really want to put music into my podcast, but I need to do more research into that realm because there's so many music licensing
Hmm.
barriers that need to be respected. So I feel like in a sense, I think my podcast can sound better, but if with music added, um, but I'm not educated enough in that realm to know what I can and can't do. So that's definitely a challenge, but also that's a challenge that I just need to do a little more research into. So, um, also things like creating a little like jingle sort of intro,
Hmm.
an intro that like I have an intro on every show, but they're all different. They're specific to that show. But what I'm working on now is kind of putting together one that could be used for every show,
Hmm.
like um this is so silly, but like how SpongeBob always had SpongeBob SquarePants, it's
Exactly.
consistent with every
Exactly.
show.
Exactly.
So that's another, but these are not, I mean, I guess they could be hard things or not. It just depends on how you view them and what you do to figure them out. But those are two relevant things. Um, things that have been easier. I mean, I just love talking to people, so that's probably the least hard part of it for
Yeah.
me. Is
I agree with that. It's cool to meet so many different doing something similar. It's very cool to just have the opportunity to meet all these really really interesting people, and you
and
being
learn
one of the
from
people on the yeah exactly and yeah I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I get to ask these questions that I have questions about, or
it. Yeah,
people that are farther along in their career, or have a different career, and I'm like, oh, I've always wondered this, or I want to know how to do this or this or that, and so I'm like literally over here like taking mental notes, like okay, I got to do this and I got to do this, and so it's a really cool experience. So how many episodes do you have?
as of today, it's 19. So I had 10 in my first season, and I was so busy with work,
Hmm.
and so I ended up waiting way too long to release my second season. And like I said, I'm all in. Like, I'm figuring out my life, but one thing that I know is that I want I want this podcast, and there's no option but for it to be successful. So um, that will never happen again. And um, yeah, so I have 19, and hopefully sooner than later I'll have hundreds and thousands. But
Amen to
yeah,
that.
but I release one a week, so we could just do the math there and figure out when I'd be at that place.
Absolutely, that's cool. Oh, maybe we get to a point we do two a week.
Yeah, maybe actually that's not a bad idea. I've considered that too.
It's twice the amount of work usually, but what?
Yeah.
So, how do you end up finding the guests for your podcast? Is it actually pre-question to that? Are your guests all in person, or do you do Zoom?
So with COVID, I started doing Zoom, like so much of the world. Before that, they were all in person.
Okay,
So now it's a little bit of a mix, and yeah, so now it's a mix.
sure. And then how do you end up finding the guests for your podcast?
It's really just me talking to people and hearing different stories and being like, "You want to be on my show?" It's really just me feeling like, "Oh, you sound cool. I would love to talk to you."
Sure.
Or if I already know someone and I've thought of them, like for example, I think the maybe episode 6 of season 2, I'm forgetting exactly which one it is, but I had this woman Winnie on my podcast, and she, to give a very short gist of what her story is, she has gone she's had surgery with no anesthesia. She fell 100 feet off of a cliff and survived, and was thrashing around speaking Gaelic when she didn't know she knew Gaelic. And she knows that because her husband happened to have been taking Gaelic classes. Otherwise, they never would have known what she was speaking. She waited 27 hours to be rescued, like medically rescued, because she was in such a remote area. she ended up becoming a leg amputee, like just crazy story. But to answer your question, using that as an example, is this is an 83-year-old woman now. When we recorded, she was 82. And I remember growing up, my mom's best friend had mentioned that her friend had undergone surgery with no anesthesia. So like, I just randomly, like, I always had that in the back of my mind. At some point was like, I would love Winnie on my show. So then I pursued my mom's best friend, and she connected me with Winnie, etc. Other than that, it's things like that, or just people I know that I'm inspired by, or people who have told me about other people that I'm inspired by. And then it's just asking.
Yeah, it's a lot of asking.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I think the biggest thing is, not learning not to be, I mean, one of the things I've learned is just learning not to be afraid of the no, because the worst thing that happens is somebody just says no, and it happens a lot. I don't know if it happens for you, but it happens for me a lot.
Yeah, I think where I'm at right now is like, if anything, my editing is kind of like, I have a few shows banked. So I'm not having that, but I totally get that too. Like with artist interviews, and like in college, I started doing interviews with artists, and of course you would get no's, or you would just get ignored, or sometimes you would get yeses. Like I ended up interviewing the Yin Yang twins in college. Like, I didn't have any business necessarily asking them, but also they said yes. So
exactly.
Gotta try.
Exactly. That's cool. You never know who's going to be open, which is pretty wild. Like, it is the funny thing that I've experienced with this, and I don't know if you've experienced this in your interviewing career, whether it be in college, on your radio show, or now with the Saige podcast, is like, some people that have, like, you would never expect to say yes are like, yeah, absolutely. And then some people that, like, really, like, you'd be like surprised that they'd like wouldn't say yes. You're like, oh, I'm too good for that. And I'm like, hold on a sec, this guy who's like way up here is like all for it, and you who's just starting off is too cool for a podcast like this or whatever. It is very interesting to see like the dynamics of people and how they function as just people.
Yeah. And you know what, even I'm like a kind of good example of that. Not that I ever told you no, but at the time when you had asked me to be on your show, I was so swamped with life and work, and I think it was kind of like, yes, like, touch base with me in a few weeks kind of thing, and it never happened. And now I have more time, and I was like, let me actually follow up on this, So I think everyone, like, that can be so annoying if people are just saying no just to say no, or without considering it. But also people have, I don't know. I think I could also guess that a lot of people who are sort of on the come up are, maybe they have a day job and they're nervous to say something wrong. Or I think that's like a very big thing, especially like some of my friends are hilarious, amazing humans who, if I just turn the mic on, it just like feels scarier. So that could be one reason why they freeze up. Or people are, nowadays you have to be careful with what you say and stuff. So
it's crazy,
but someone who's up here might be like, oh, I'm good. I've been through this. So
that's a good point. That's a great point. Like, especially like you said, like on the come up, not even knowing what to say because you're afraid that this is going to be taken the wrong way. And how many times I put my foot in my mouth, on a live stream or filming a video, like, because I don't edit a lot of my videos, especially these podcasts that I don't edit at all. I just clip them out. And then get clips from them, but like I like the rawness of them, and I like the ability. Personally, I can put out more content if I don't edit my content. Essentially,
I get it.
I mean? So, I'm more of the more mentality than the quality mentality. But even quality is subjective. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the podcasts that I listen to are just straight like they don't do anything. And then like the funny thing is like the camera will die, and they'll like, you'll hear them talking about the camera dying. They'll be like, oh, that camera died, so just look over here and we'll fix that in a set. Like it's just, it's funny, you know what I mean? But it's, I guess it's a new style. But yeah, so
different folks.
What was that?
I said different strokes for different folks.
It's totally true. Absolutely.